尊敬的围绕委员、索海默执行主任、各位同事、各位朋友、女士们、先生们，大家好。
Distinguished Mr. Vella, Commissioner for Environment, Maritime Affairs and Fishery of the European Commission, Distinguished Mr. Solheim, Executive Director of the UN Environment, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
很高兴出席欧盟环境委员会循环经济主题编会。借此机会呢，我与各位同事交流一下这方面的有关的情况。
I'm very pleased to attend the side event on the role of circular economy organized by the European Union and take this opportunity to share with you my thoughts and thinkings in this regard.
生态环境问题是我们全人类的共同挑战。就其根源呢，是我们在资源开发方式、能源利用方式、经济发展方式和日常生活方式等方面存在问题，导致人类生产生活活动对资源的消耗、环境的污染和生态的破坏，远远超出了资源环境承载力。大气、水、土壤污染和生态灾害是大自然向人类社会亮出的红灯警示。
Ecological and environmental issues are a common challenge for mankind. The root cause lies in our ways of resource exploitation, energy use, economic growth, and daily life. These human activities cause resource depletion, environmental pollution, and ecological destruction that have been far beyond the carrying capacity of the resource and environment. Air, water, and soil pollution and ecological disasters are the red lights that nature signals to human community.
中国政府历来高度重视生态环境保护，这是因为呢，日益趋紧的资源环境约束是我们建设社会主义现代化国家进程中必须解决的一个重大问题。破解这个难题的唯一出路，就是要坚持创新、协调、绿色、开放、共享的发展理念，推动建立健全绿色、低碳、循环的生产体系和消费模式，从源头上减少资源能源的消耗和污染的排放，逐步实现经济发展与资源消耗和污染排放脱钩，走出一条人与自然和谐共生的现代化的道路。
The Chinese government has always attached great importance to protecting the ecological environment. Increasingly tighter resource and environmental constraints become a major issue to be addressed in the process of building a modern socialist nation. The only solution is innovative, coordinated, green, open, and shared development. We must foster a sound system and pattern of green, low-carbon, and circular production and consumption to reduce resource and energy depletion and pollution emission at the very origin. We'll decouple economic growth from resource consumption and pollution emission in a progressive manner and open up a new road to modernization, characterized by man and nature in harmonious coexistence.
今年10月中国共产党召开了第19次全国代表大会。这次大会呢，对加快建立绿色生产和消费的法律制度和政策导向，建立健全绿色低碳循环发展的经济体系，提出了一系列新理念、新要求、新目标和新部署。
The 19th National Congress of the Communist Party of China, held in October this year, set out new principles, requirements, objectives, and arrangements for a faster move to establish the legal system and policy guidance on green production and consumption, and also to build a robust system of green, low-carbon, and circular economy.
下一步呢，我们将秉持新理念，着力采取以下一些行动措施。
This new vision of development calls on us to take the following actions and measures.
第一呢，是坚持人与自然是生命共同体的理念，尊重自然、顺应自然、保护自然，推 推动能源消费革命，建立绿色生产供应链，倡导绿色生活方式，实现生产系统和生活系统的循环链接，构建人与自然和谐发展现代化建设的新格局，还自然以宁静、和谐、美丽。
First, we believe that man and nature form a community of life. We must respect nature, follow its natural course, and protect it well. We'll advance reform of energy consumption, establish green production and supply chains, promote green lifestyles, establish a circular link between production and life systems, and also develop a new model of modernization with man developing economy in harmony with nature. With this, we hope to restore the serenity, harmony, and beauty of nature.
第二呢是坚持绿水青山就是金山银山的理念，划定并严守生态保护红线，统筹山水林田湖草系统治理，实施重要的生态系统保护和修复重大工程，增加优质生态产品的供给。
Secondly, we'll have realized that lucid waters and large mountains are invaluable assets for us. We'll draw and observe ecological red lines for protecting the ecosystems, adopt a holistic approach to conserving mountains, rivers, forests, farmlands, lakes, and grasslands, and carry out major projects to protect and restore key ecosystems and provide more quality ecological goods.
第三呢是坚持以人民为中心的理念，着力解决大气、水、土壤污染问题，依法严厉打击洋垃圾入境，坚决打好污染防治攻坚战，满足人民日益增长的优美生态环境需要。
Thirdly, we will persist in people-centered development and make focused efforts to solve air, water, and soil pollution. We'll also crack down on the entry of foreign wastes into China in accordance with law. We'll also take resolute measures to prevent and control pollution in order to meet people's growing demands for a beautiful environment.
第四呢是坚持人类命运共同体的理念，积极参与全球环境治理，合作应对气候变化。 构筑尊崇自然、绿色发展的生态体系，推动建设清洁美丽的世界，为迈向无污染的星球贡献中国的智慧和中国的力量。
Fourthly, we strive to build a community with a shared future for mankind. We'll get actively involved in global environmental governance and in climate change cooperation. We'll also cultivate ecosystems based on respect for nature and green development to build a clean and beautiful world and contribute China's wisdom and plan to the transition towards a pollution-free planet.
我就讲这些，谢谢大家的聆听。
So I end my remarks here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Minister. The commitment of China to the sustainable development is truly appreciated, and we welcome your statement. The most busy person those days, that's Eric Solheim, Executive Director, UN Environment. Eric, please.
Thank you so much, Janos. And true, I'm very busy these days, but there is also very few events I'm so eager to participate in than this, because this is so important. Let me start by thanking you, Carmena, for the leadership provided by the European Union, and by the way also you, Janos, because former commissioner and present commissioners, you come together, and the European Union has really been a driver in the agenda of circular economy. Please continue, please lead us. We also congratulate Minister Li, my good friend Ganje from China, to see how China is now stepping up, not only protecting the environment much better in China itself, but providing global leadership, among other ways, through slogans we should all embrace. Look to what was set out in the 19th Party Congress: ecological civilization, a beautiful China, or when President Xi said that clean rivers and green forests is the new gold. These are slogans I think resonate with people not just in China but in the entire world. So, and of course the European Union and China with the United States of America are the three major economies of the world. So what happens in Europe and China is so important to all of you. Then linking up with South Africa, the biggest with Nigeria economy in the African continent, and also a leader in so many of these areas. And if I may add, your co-chair for the resource panel, Isabella Teixeira, bringing also Brazil in, then we have all the main continents of the world into this alliance to promote a circular economy. Let me take plastic as an example, as Commissioner Vella did. What do we actually need to do? And of course, I agree to everything I heard from both Minister Lee and Commissioner Vella. What do we actually need to do? Well, we need to phase out the plastics we don't need. Do we need straws? My mother could drink her entire life without a straw. She became 92 and she always drank from glass. Was that harming her, or from her cup? Do we need straws? My good friend Afro Shah in Mumbai is going around to the restaurants there and asked him, please put a poster on your wall which say, if a customer really demands a straw, you will get it, but we will not give it out to anyone without being specifically asked. And I think that would remove this to close to zero. It may seem a small thing, but it's not. I mean, in Bali, straws are one of the main plastic items people pick up from the oceans, because of course Bali is such an enormous tourist destination. Then there are a huge variety of plastics where we can find replacement, economically viable replacement which degenerate in nature. Two global giants, Danone and Nestlé, has just announced that by 2020 all their bottles will be made from biomaterials which will degenerate in nature. So, I mean, as if you throw an apple out in the nature here, within a few days it will have gone. It will take much longer back home in northern Norway, but in the tropical areas of the world it degenerates at a speed. And this bottle will degenerate in the same way. Then there are plastics we do need to conserve some foodstuff. For sure, to make our cars lighter, to make our solar flights lighter, to go to the moon. When Bertrand Piccard, the great pioneer of solar flights, made his first around the globe solar flight, a lot of the materials in his flight or in his machine was plastic, because plastic was so light that it couldn't get out, but still so insulating that he was not freezing to death up there. So, but with this policy, phase out what we do not need, make from other materials what we do need, and then recycling the plastic we really cannot replace. With that policies, I can see no way we will not be able to resolve the plastic problem. But we need to be practical, because people demand practical solutions. Then a few other thoughts. We are all the time introducing new products on the planet, and we need to take the life cycle in from the beginning. One obvious such issue, which is close to the heart of everyone here, is solar panels. We are making now, fortunately, fantastic good news, any amount of solar panels, but we also need to start a discussion of when solar panels at some point will be decommissioned, how will they feed a circular economy. And we need to change our thinking. People don't maybe not really realize it. Some people say it's hard for poor people to handle this problem. To the contrary, all poor people on the planet lives in a completely circular economy. No poor man can waste anything. Even what I will consider moderately poor people like my grandparents, my grandmother never threw away anything. Why? Because there was always a use for it. There was always a new innovative way you can use it. Maybe not the original purpose, but it could be used in some other way, because they couldn't afford to throw away anything. My mother could afford to throw away things, but still it was very hard for her. I hardly remember any time my mother threw away some food stuff, because it was in her blood that she needed to keep it. To me, it's much easier, and for my children, it's also much easier. So, because we have, with the affluence, we have moved into an economy where we can afford to throw away basically everything, or at least many of us can, and we need to have a lot more of the old thinking. We will not be able to go back to the old thinking that you keep everything, but we can get back to the old thinking that every item can get a new use. There is no way that we should not be able to say, make our cellular phones in such a way that the different components of the cellular phones can be used again. Same with our cars, same with our solar panels, same basically everywhere. This is just a failure of our innovation, our spirit, if we can't make this done. So thank you so much. I'm very optimistic. I think in 10 to 20 years we will see a lot more of a circular economy everywhere in the world, and with the leadership of European Union and China, South Africa and Brazil, we will make the trick. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. I have understood that some of our opening speakers need to leave, which, of course, we fully understand. We will now continue with the session when I will switch from a moderator to another role, which is basically the role of presenter. You can wait a bit. I will call you. I think it's better if you stay like that. And hello. Can we get uploaded, please? Okay. Can we get it on the big screen also, please? Yeah, but I think I would prefer if the people would see it. It's there. Huh? Yeah. It's impossible or what? No, just tell me, then I will go to the screen there. It's no problem. That's also possible. Okay. I think we will do a switch, and I would invite the panel to go on first. In the meantime, we will try to solve the issue. Please. First, Edna Molleva, the Minister for Environment from Republic of South Africa, is already with us. We have also the Minister of Environment from Chile, Marcelo Mena Carrasco. Then we have Lorna Roto, the CEO and founder of EcoPost from Kenya. We have Harry. Where is he? He should be somewhere close, I hope. Herr Head of the Public and Government Affairs, Philips, Netherlands, and Jos Berjo, Executive Officer, Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So we have different kind of speakers. Two of them are the ministers, and I would start with Edna. We know each other quite for a long time. The question is, South Africa has a strong commitment towards growth and jobs in its national development plan. How is the circular economy really contributing to your objectives?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator and my friend. We would like to, first of all, express our appreciation from the bottom of our hearts, indeed, as South Africa for the hosting of this event to the EU. Not only this one, the one that took place at World Economic Forum, and recently we also met on the margins of the climate change discussions. This is indeed an opportunity for us to share with the entire world what South Africa is doing in relation to what you raised, the matter about job creation, fighting poverty, but also growing our economy. In other words, what we are really expressing is that we see this as a multifaceted approach to dealing with some of the difficulties that we face. What are those issues? Or what have we done, rather, just getting to the core of, and the nut of the matter, is that we do indeed think that it is quite important that to have a successful implementation of a circular economy, you need, and we probably all need, a very strong legislation or legislative arrangements in place. We need institutionalization, institutional arrangements in place, and that's exactly what we did in South Africa. We have also looked at the strategy itself in order for us to be able to ensure that we deal with this issue of waste. In other words, all your regulatory framework is in place. We do think that circular economy is becoming more important daily and on a continuous basis. And with the right business model, the products could remain in the economy for much longer than a day. For an example, if you look at just a unused product like a car, consumption rates of everything from car to consumer goods could increase tenfold by utilizing innovative sharing model as part of our business model. In South Africa, we have adopted what we call the 4 R's: reuse, recycle, reduce, and recover. What we are right now doing, we're already at a space where we're tackling 2 waste streams, because we take them in a waste stream form, and that is in the tire industry as well as in the plastic industry. Of course, the plastic started quite a long time ago, around 19, 20 years ago, with some successes and some failures. We are beginning to actually review the work that we've been doing on the plastic, in the plastic space. So these waste streams are intended for us to focus from cradle to cradle, manufacturing goods and reusing the same material that we have used over and over and over again, so that we don't throw away anything. And that is in the space of your electronics, which is white goods, the paper and packaging, that's the next that we're tackling, and the lighting and did I say the tires is one, the paper and packaging, lighting, and electronics waste. In other words, all your white goods. That's the next set that we're actually tackling after the tire, and now strengthening the plastic. Here we are talking about material recovery center establishments, because you need infrastructure in place for the whole value chain to actually be managed in a manner that will actually end up with manufacturing and reuse again. We actually did something that we believe is very strong, because in this we actually need some funding to a certain extent. And we look at putting a price tag on waste. Pricing strategy is what we actually came up with. And now the levy that's being paid through our treasury is being used to actually regenerate, implement the whole program that we have. We have been able to create quite a number of jobs for young people. we're continuing, and we look at, just in the tire industry, for instance, was about 10,000 jobs at a go as we began and implemented this program on an ongoing basis. Just imagine now the 4 other waste streams that are coming. We're dealing with poverty, and it will help us deal with the growth of the economy, small, medium, and micro enterprises development, because in the space, we're also looking at creating small businesses that at times bigger, like for instance, your recycling of some of the existing voluntary schemes, like your Coca-Cola brand that's recycling the bottle, plastic bottle, like your Impact that's recycling the cartons and so forth. There are many of those companies, but they are on voluntary basis. So as government, we thought that it's important to work with industry, and I want to emphasize the partnerships necessity here in this regard, because you cannot do it alone. We work with partners in government, in private sector, as well as in the NGO community. Society as a whole, coming up with a innovative model of even introducing new technologies, which are quite important. I'll end here for now, and then come back later if it's necessary.
Thank you, Minister. So very strong legislation, voluntary approach also, institutionalization, clear strategy, everything it's calling for a system approach. And price tag on waste is something which is connected actually to environmental externalities. I will talk about that later more. Now I would like to ask Minister of the Environment from Chile, Marcelo Mena Carrasco. Chile has been fully embracing sustainable consumption and production through a strategic effort across the entire government. What is the role of the circular economy which is playing in advancing your sustainable consumption and production concept? Please.
Thank you. As you said, we recently launched our sustainable production strategy and consumption strategy, which is aligned with many SDGs. And it comes from the fact that we believe the market can be a way to transform through the choice of the economy, in which the circular economy is a service-based economy in which we need to get rid of the waste as much as we can. But I also want to, we've discussed about circular economy, it's a very sexy term, but you should also consider that this comes in many different things that we need to address before that. For example, we need to, first off, in developing countries, need to get rid of illegal waste, trash burning. We must have free dumping not exist, because therefore it's much more difficult, because obviously circular economy or waste management overall has a cost, and it is internalizing a cost of the pollution that is created. Therefore, we need to have this on the table. So starting from that basis, one of the things that we are looking into recently, we're launching this next week and this next Saturday, our first 3 eco-labels for the different companies, actually led by the private sector, in which we are going to provide eco-labels for recycled materials. For example, the percentage of recycled materials that are included in a water bottle or a plastic bottle, how much renewable energy is used, and we want to have the 100% renewable energy label. And also, because we never must underestimate the power of label. I'll just give you one example. We have one of the first food labels, black labels, for high sugar content. And the fact that we had high sugar content with black labels has caused many of the soft drink companies to change their formulation, reducing the sugar content, and therefore transforming the way that their products are done. And I think we could achieve similar goals with eco-labels on the positive side for better waste management, better sustainable practices. The private sector is also good in pushing this, and last week we signed the 14 biggest retail companies, including Unilever, Walmart, and Nestle, for a zero waste to landfill initiative that we have to, we're developing the eco-label and the framework so we could prove this. But this is a really great thing, because we didn't have this on the table, and it was the private sector itself that led the zero waste to landfill initiative, which obviously we need to get into what things are being sold, obviously, because that's most of where the waste is going. But obviously, it's a good thing to go zero waste to landfill and show that this is something that's possible too. Also, we have to consider that plastics are forever in our human terms, so we need to be looking into the plastic issues. Plastic bag ban is something that we looked into, which is very important also, because if we could use all the plastic that you want and dump it anywhere, obviously the circular economy is not going to work either. And I do commend Kenya and Ghana and Rwanda and other countries that have been looking at these plastic bag bans. I come from the generation of Back to the Future. I was promised that we're going to have flying cars by now. We don't have them. But we will have flying cars maybe 100 years. But if we don't do something about the plastic, we're going to have the same plastic that we're dumping today there, intact. And so therefore, we need to make a special effort for the plastic. And one of the things that we're going to use finally is the EPR law, Extended Producer Responsibility Law, in which I think the deposits system is going to be a very effective way to mobilize recycling of bottles overall. And you'll probably have no bottles in any environment if they have a cost. And that's something we're also going to push for in the short term. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for reminding us that that each country has different challenges, and that the basics should start first. And maybe we don't have the flying cars, but we have too many polluting cars. That's something which is part of our problem, which we have to deal with. Now, I would like to invite the third speaker from the panel. That's Lorna Ruto. You are the CEO and founder of the EcoPost here in Nairobi, in Kenya. EcoPost has been pioneering the promotion of circular economy business models in the plastic sector. We would be interested to hear the broad social, environmental, and economic impacts that your company has achieved in the Kenyan society. Maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but globally we are buying 1 million plastic bottles a minute. That's the plastic economy. Lorna, please.
Thank you very, very much for inviting me and for organizing this wonderful event. I am truly honored and humbled to be able to have this discussion with such wonderful, beautiful, and handsome people. Please clap for yourselves. Thank you. Yeah. My name is Lorna Ruto, and I'm a multi-passionate social entrepreneur with a vision to have a green Africa free from poverty. And my vision for EcoPost is to transform all Africa's waste into wealth. And I'll give you a bit about my background, just a little bit. I grew up in a place in Kenya called Kaptembwa in Nakuru. It used to be a green forested area with a lot of trees and birds. And even as I was going to take our cows to drink water in the nearby flowing rivers, there will be hidden streams and ponds where I would enjoy the fresh air from the beautiful forest cover. However, in 1994, due to rural-urban migration, our trees were cut down to give room to poorly serviced settlements. And before I knew it, my once beautiful home became a dirty small town with waste littering the streets, clogging our sewages, and even encroaching into our homes. And you've seen, like in Nairobi when it rains, what happens with the polythene bags. It just blocks the sewages, and then the water would raise, and the sewage will go and encroach into people's homes. It just became pathetic. But as a kid, I used to take some of this waste, and I would melt them and make ornaments. And then I used to sell to students, school children, and I realized waste is not waste until it is wasted. I realized that at a very early age, and I felt when I grew up I would want to do something even more with all this waste affecting us. And Kenya faces the triple challenge of recycling its municipal solid waste, conserving its forests and the environment, and even creating job opportunities and reducing poverty in line with the social, Sustainable Development Goals. And Kenya, EcoPost was actually conceived in 2009 with the vision to actually do that, solve all those challenges. And in Kenya, for example, today we are recycling, every day there's over 10,000 metric tons of waste that is generated. And from this waste, 20% of it, which is plastic, has been there littering the streets, clogging the sewages. I don't know what even quantity manages to get even into the dump site. 50% is normally not taken to the proper way of being managed. There's a time we used to call this plastic waste our national flowers, but thank God to the ban, I can see there's a name, a director somewhere, Yei. At least the ban, we are hoping the ban of the flimsy plastics will prevent this kind of waste, making that our national flowers. And at EcoPost, what do we do about this? We are able to work with youth and women groups who we collect together this plastic waste. We recycle it and manufacture very aesthetic, durable, and environmentally friendly poles for fencing, for signage, and for building and construction. Because there's been a huge loss of our tree covers, we have, there's an improvement there. It used to be just 2%, and it's at least has increased to 6%. But our trees, we're losing our trees due to the need for due to the increase in human population and the need for building materials. At EcoPost, we're able to manufacture these wonderful alternatives to timber, so we're able to conserve our trees. As we are speaking today, we've been able to conserve over 1,000 acres of forest by manufacturing over 100,000 plus products. How do we do it? We've been able to withdraw over 2.5 million kilograms of plastic. We also manufacture agricultural waste, and we are able to convert them into these wonderful building materials that is preventing the loss of our biodiversity. When we cut down our trees, we're actually destroying our livelihoods, and it's very important that we conserve. We did not inherit this earth from our ancestors. We borrowed it from our children, and I'm so glad to get this opportunity to discuss further and see how we could work together to create a better future for the generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lorna. Indeed, waste, until waste is waste, it's a problem. When waste is a resource, it's a solution. And I think in that way, we have to think to try to look to the solutions. Now I would like to invite Harry Berhar, Head of the Global Public and Government Affairs, Philips Lightning. Circular economy innovation in the areas of healthcare, consumer lifestyle, lightening, it's central pillar of the Philips business strategy. How have you engaged everybody in the company and along the value chain to operate with the circular economy principles, which would be the conditions required to scale the experience of the companies like yours, that also the others could take it on board? Please, Harry.
Thank you, Yannis, and thank you all for being here. So I'd like to indeed highlight two areas. So one is how do we drive the circular economy in our approach, and secondly, how can we scale the impact? Because we are, in a sense, it's a very popular and hot subject, but in a sense we're only just at the beginning of this transition from linear extraction, consumption, exhaust to circular, more efficient. So we see the circular economy not just as something that will improve material efficiency and that will reduce waste flows. We see it very much as a driver for innovation, because you look at the life cycle impact, and in that sense we see that it gives us an opportunity to highlight more, let's say, the economics of life cycle impact, but also when you look at those more economical solutions, LED lighting in various ways, a good example, is that they not only give you a lower energy bill and reduce your maintenance and have a smaller impact on the environment, but almost, I think, without exception, more sustainable solutions provide a better quality of service. And in that sense, you can say that the paradigm shift for lighting that we're going through is then using this to show that the move from a focus on the price of a lamp to the cost of lighting to the value of light. You could say the price of a product, the cost of its use to the value of its service. And that also goes for healthcare, where we see, of course, a lot of debates on healthcare costs and medication, but also there we move from focus on the price of medication, the cost of healthcare, where you can do a lot also with circular principles, but then to the value of health, and you see what kind of important transitions we need to go through. Another aspect there, to conclude on that part, is that what is really important with circular economy is that it will help us to resolve the fact that we are quite often, everything that we apply, one technology cycle behind what is possible. Because there's such a huge focus on lowest initial cost, public procurement often focus lowest initial cost. We like instant gratification, and the fact that you optimize the entire life cycle balance gives an automatic incentive to upgrade continuously to the latest state of the art. And there is also something that relates then to the second part, how can we scale impact? For parts, we need to treat, and I think you know that, we need to treat secondary end-of-life materials and products not as waste. I've done years ago, before Circular started, a project on recycling of fluorescent lamps, and one of the things that we found, we could make identical products, the same light quality, but what we found is that where you can transport a new product almost anywhere you want without any borders, that if it's end of life, you not only have to do with national regulation, but also provincial, municipal. The same, let's say, logistical experts are not allowed to transport those products back. So on this whole part, on the whole redistribution, it's important that regulation takes into account that it enables this instead of frustrates it, because with slowdown, it adds to the cost. Then secondly, and that relates to the point that I made on let's say, the whole life cycle approach, we see that more sustainable solutions, and certainly LED lighting, they technically last longer. In the past, we make many decisions based on end of technical lifetime. If a lamp or another product fails, or the medical appliance, you go for a new one. With longer lasting products, we would shoot ourselves in the foot in the circular economy if decision making remains to be based on end of technical lifetime. We would actually be worse off because I think that's a light bulb lasts a year. So if you made a mistake, you can do something better after a year. But if LEDs last 10 years in a city, and in the meantime, technology has improved 50% in efficiency, so that's why products need to become modular and upgradable in hardware and software. And we work there together, friends, also as a lighting industry with Lighting Europe, and just weeks ago, we issued a white paper on servable luminaires. So that also regulation should see to it that, let's say, sealed for life products and concepts in eco-design should not be allowed, but products should be modular, upgradable, and thereby also have by components easier recyclable. Financing is important. We see if you stimulate this move to more circular, more efficient solution, that financing, let's say, financing should enable larger projects, because we also need to move to city scale and company scale solutions. So thereby, and the last remark there, and I think my time is up, is also working together like we do with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation and with the World Economic Forum, because nobody can solve this alone.
Truly. Thank you, Harry. So people, yeah, correct. People need light, not light bulbs. We need mobility, not cars. We need we need fresh food. We don't need refrigerators. So that's the philosophy which actually you explained, and which is the philosophy which very much in the circular economy logic. Finally, my good friend Jos Dario from which regulatory policy instruments, mechanisms of collaboration between public and private sector have contributed to create incentives, encourage the scaling up of the circular activities? To which extent have they been applied in the plastic area, which you are now focusing very much? Jos, please.
Thank you very much, Yannis. Thank you, ministers. Thank you, fellow panelists, Commissioner, as well, to all your great insights and very wise words. I think that if we look at circular economy, we're looking at system change, and currently the system is hardwired by and for linear economy. So if we look at policy, it's important to resist the temptation to think that there will be one silver bullet. Actually, you have to look thoroughly, because all of these pieces are interconnected, and it's really important, if we're going to be serious about this, to make sure we don't end up with circular plug-in or circular bolt-on to a linear system, because that would defeat the purpose. And why would we do that now? Well, it is a good moment in time, and it's also important to capture moment in times. The SDGs are getting massive traction. Certainly from the business side of the fence, they are getting more traction than anything else before them. There's a Business Commission for Sustainable Development, which is very active. The World Economic Forum, our partners, are very active. A lot of our business partners and big corporate members are rethinking their practices, because it's not only a question of what do we put in products. As it's been said, it's also a question of those business models, how you deliver the service. True, you don't need the car. Well, actually, you do need a car to get you from A to B, but you don't need to own it. So if we look at the embedded waste in the system, and we've done that in a few of our reports, the average European car sits idle 92% of the time, so that's roughly 1.5 tons of metals and polymers taking up space, not doing anything, and that is not even mentioning the negative externalities that have incurred during its production. So if we look at this, trying to look at the circular economy as a way to design waste and pollution out, to keep materials, components and products at the highest level of quality possible in the system, and also to rebuild and maintain natural capital. So have an economy that builds rather than one that depletes like we have at the moment. And it's really important to make the business case for that, because the linear economy is still working. You know, a lot of people tend to bury it a bit too quickly, but there are still efficiencies to be gained. There are still a lot of things that can be done. So it's important to make it extremely clear that the circular economy has a better business rationale in order to get private sector and public sector around the same table, which I have to say you have done brilliantly during your tenure as Commissioner and within the European Resource Efficiency Platform. It's create that common sense of direction which every stakeholder feels he has ownership of, so it becomes a co-creation process. And what's really interesting is that we can therefore move from the traditional approach of business wanting to maximize profit, legislator wanted to control the excesses, and then end up in a lowest common denominator kind of logic. Here we can be in a virtuous spiral of co-creation for the business models, but also the legislation that enables it. And there are really interesting signs of this dynamic starting to take hold. You see national roadmaps. Finland has a national roadmap. France has a national roadmap. Chile is doing a lot of great work. South Africa as well. China has had the circular economy at the heart of its 5-year plans for about 15 years now. The latest amendment or the latest action plan that they have released focuses more on upstream, because that's the important bit as well. It's not about cleaning up, it's about looking at something that you're going to put on the market. If it doesn't have a space, if you don't know what to do with it at the end, you shouldn't put it out in the first place. And yes, there are a lot of interesting innovations about plastic, and we of course welcome the great commitment by the European Commission. But plastic is one of the visible elements of the iceberg, and it is really, in this case, again, it really shows the importance of getting everybody around the same table, across the value chain, and looking at those upstream measures. What are you going to put out there? Is it going to have a place and fit somewhere? Is it going to go away? Is it going to potentially contribute to building natural capital? There are various solutions. It has to be innovation-led, and it has to be a real partnership between the innovators, the financiers, and the people who design the regulatory framework around it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jos. By the way, Ellen MacArthur Foundation was quite instrumental in Europe to push the policymakers in the right direction. And I have in my term really appreciated that, because it was more than needed. Before we would go to the debate, I would now like to do something which I wanted to do at the beginning. It's an introduction from the side of the view of International Resource Panel, how actually the circular economy is linked to the pollution story. First thing which we have to understand very well altogether, for the first time in the human history, you face emergence of a single tightly coupled human socio-ecological system of planetary scope. So the first time in the humankind history we talk about planetary scope. We are more interconnected and interdependent than ever, which means that our individual and also collective responsibility for the future has enormously increased. When we do science, we normally use so-called DIPSIR framework, which means that we are analyzing responses via the drivers, pressures, state, and the impact. The policymakers, of course, it's extremely important that you address the state and impact. And when we talk about pollution, we actually talk about that. But it is essential, and this is many times missing as a second step in the policy making, that you also address the causes and the drivers of the pollution. So if you would link it to today's story, pollution is very serious, in many ways neglected problem caused by human activities. We must deal with the impacts and state of the pollution we are already facing, but most important would be to address the drivers and pressures causing it. So changing the way we produce and consume, avoiding pollution is thus essential. One of the conclusions from the International Resource Panel was that sustainable consumption and production is the most efficient strategy to avoid trade-offs among SDGs and create synergies to resolve the development and environmental challenges articulated in the SDGs. Trade-offs are simply unavoidable, but this is the way how we can best address them. So focusing on sustainable production and consumption is to a large extent extremely important part of the puzzle if we want to implement eradicating poverty, hunger reduction, and so on, and the rest of the SDGs. Let us look, this will be the simplified way, how actually our economies today look. The price signals which are coming to the markets are financial capital, it's overvalued. By the way, financial system in itself, it's living its own story. Human capital is undervalued. Natural capital, to a large extent, not valued at all. These are the signals which comes on the market, and we know that market is a mechanism which we can expect also in the future. Us, producers and consumers, behave rationally, and of course, at the end, we are surprised that we are living in economic model which is in total economic, social, and environmental imbalance. We simply shouldn't be surprised. That are the essentials which we are sending in. I was fighting, and I'm pretty sure, Carmenu, it's also that environment would be on equal footing than social and economic. But in essence, friends, this is wrong. It should look like that. It should look that socioeconomic systems which are providing us with social needs and value would be subordinated to the ecosystems, because these are the limits which we simply have to respect. This is the same story. It's a slide prepared by a European Environmental Agency. What I would like to draw your attention is on environmental externalities. These are the costs. You have already today heard that we can't introduce that because this is additional cost. Why? Because those costs, we simply believe that they are not existing. They are existing, but we deny them. They are part of health system, or simply we shift those costs to the next generation. This is the easiest way, because they cannot complain. So it's extremely important that we stop internalizing profits and socializing the costs, which is the essence of today's economic system. This is the answer from the International Resource Panel. We believe that the human well-being can grow faster than economic activity, but in all the cases, economic activity should grow faster than economic use. In the case of developing countries, of course, there will be still resources which will be growing, but economic activity should grow faster. But in both cases, in developed and in developing countries, it is essential that the economic activity is decoupled from environmental impacts, which are today causing serious problems and also many ways putting us together in the rooms like today. This is the circular economy. By the way, this is the slide which was prepared by Ellen MacArthur Foundation. On the left-hand side, you have renewable flows. On the right-hand side of this butterfly, you have the material stock flows. What is the essence of circular economy? The essence is keeping resources as long as possible in the production and consumption system, keeping their value high. You can do it by designing the products differently, you can do it by designing the processes differently, you can do it by educating consumers, you can do it by different, you have heard many of those examples already. But what is essential is to understand that recycling, it's actually the worst of the best, while some other things are coming before that. So there are three issues where I would like you that take into consideration which are the things which we have to keep in mind when we talk about the circular economy. First, we should integrate human flows, the social dimension, also in the circular economy. If we are not able to address with the circular economy social needs and more equity, eradicate poverty, we have failed. Because it's essential that this would not become another Western type of economic model. Second, this is the link to the bioeconomy, which is today also a very important concept. Bioeconomy is actually the left renewable part of the butterfly. what is the bioeconomy and circular economy link. We need to strengthen one wing of the butterfly. So move some of the products from one wing to another wing, from non-renewable to renewable, but it has to be done in a way that all the renewable is kept in balance, so it should be sustainable. Otherwise, bioeconomy could be as much dangerous as the classical economy. And finally, we should link the circular economy to the climate economy and climate change. Climate specialists are focusing on GHG carbon management. What you would need to do is actually add land management, water management, materials management, and talk about how the things are connected, because in essence it's really about the system change. There is an upcoming report from IRP on assessment of resource efficiency and innovation in circular economy through remanufacturing, reuse, repair, and refurbishment. It will be published in the first half of the next year. It will address this, we call it value retention processes, all the processes of circular economy, but recycling. So direct reuse, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing. It will address product perspective, production perspective, barriers perspective, design perspective, and finally policy perspective. There will be 3 case studies of the sectors included, 9 case study products for 4 major global economies, for Brazil, for China, for Germany, and United States. So it will be really a wealth of data and analysis you have not seen till now. One of the conclusions which is following from that, and this is the only conclusion I will show you because we are still in the pipeline of preparing the final version, there is no evidence that economic status determines a country's ability to successfully engage in value retention processes, circular economy, as a strategy for more sustainable production. Rather, it is the presence and nature of systemic barriers that affect the speed at which it can be integrated, adopted, and that resulting in economic and environmental benefits. So circular economy can be used for all levels of developments. It's only the fact, as a minister from Chile said, there are different challenges for countries on the different level of development, which one has to address. To conclude, we can call it sustainable, low-carbon, circular, green, resource-efficient, energy-efficient, decoupling, free arts, ecological civilization, cradle-to-cradle, bioeconomy, eco-economy, blue economy. These are all expressions which, by the way, we are using. In essence, what we are talking about is that we need a new economic model based on sustainable consumption and production, integrating all 3 pillars of sustainability, that this is necessary and unavoidable, and that we simply have to change the broken compass under which we are currently living. Few things which I would like you to remember from today's gathering. For the first time in the human history, we face emergence of a single, tightly coupled human socio-ecological system of planetary scope. Pollution, it's a very serious and neglected problem caused by human activities. We must deal with existing impacts of the pollution, but most important is to address the drivers and pressures causing the pollution. Transition to a new economic model integrating all pillars of sustainability should be in the center of our attention. Sustainable consumption and production is the most efficient strategy to avoid trade-offs among SDGs and address pollution drivers. And circular economy is one of the concepts to operationalize it in practice. Sustainable consumption and production concepts should lead us to better exploit the synergies among climate change, biodiversity, and resource management. This is currently missing. Implementing SDGs should be priority of any government. Linked to the core economic policy decisions, it's about system change. Without leadership, improved global governance SDGs are only wishful thinking. Change will not appear by waiting for the leadership of others. Be the leaders on your level of governance and authority in politics, in business, in academia, local, city level. And finally, if we are to avoid globally extensive and intersystemic crises and frequent conflicts that then let's get serious about implementing what we have agreed in SDGs. Changes are unavoidable and humans are supposed to be intelligent. It's high time to prove it. To end up, any global transition is a major new opportunity for the innovation, new development opportunities, and new jobs, because some are believing that this is a kind of gloom and doom story. Alternative, I would rather not talk about, because it's a major story of gloom and doom. When Albert Einstein was asked why it is that mankind has stretched so far as to discover the structure of the atom, but we have not been able to devise the political means to keep the atom from destroying us, he replied, "This is simple, my friend. It's because politics is more difficult than physics." So this is the story of physics, but solution is in political hands. If we humans will deny the physical laws, it will not end up well. Thank you. So I guess we have some quarter of an hour for the debate. I would like to open the floor. Since you do not have the flags in front of you, I would only request you that you raise your hand or whatever, you raise my attention, and then you also present yourself and which one you would like to address, or it's simply the question to the panel as such. Yes, please, the gentleman in the first row here. It's the easiest to notice the people who are in the first row. Please.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Jorge Jurado. I'm the Undersecretary of Environment in Ecuador. I have a question. All what you have shown in this wonderful and very good presentation has been known in the last 30 years. This is not new. In the 90s, there were a lot of thinking about how to reuse waste and so on in the industrial process. My question is, why 30 years later in a United Nations Environmental Assembly are we now discussing this as a main point of discussion?
Because politics is more difficult than physics.
I think so. I share your opinion, but I think that my question is going to try to bring up all the minds to the public that we are very late.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but we are very late in this issue. If we had the possibility and put all the efforts in order to do this, what we are trying to do now, 30 years ago, I think a little bit we have the chance to change.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I think what is important is that we understand that the real opportunity which SDGs brought on our tables, it's huge, because I think it's a kind of final understanding of the humanity that if we do not work together, it will not end up well. And we needed quite some time, and also today we are not yet there. But so I firmly believe that a kind of a stronger global governance would be needed, because it's difficult to keep everything under national authorities, but you have global trade, you have global economy, you have global climate change story, you have internet, which is global, a lot of things which are influencing on our lives, increasing population and everything. It's pretty much global. By the way, we have in Europe 70 years ago decided that we would give up part of our sovereignty on a higher level with one single simple reason: to avoid wars and conflicts. I think we are pretty much close globally that we address that issue in the same way. But that's my opinion. If somebody would like to comment, welcome. Harry, please.
Maybe that's a small remark to that. And I use an example of a friend of mine 20 years ago lived in the US, and he said in a way that if people in their neighborhood, if they put out 2 or 3 waste bins a week, it was a sign of prosperity. You were well off. And if somebody put out only 1, the neighborhood started gossiping if he was perhaps unemployed and couldn't afford, had to buy and waste as much. So maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was for the wrong reasons, a sign of prosperity that you could waste a lot. And I think now we see it's a sign of stupidity, because it doesn't make economic, environmental, and social sense. At least I think there's certainly a change in there.
Any other questions? Yes, I will. Please.
Hello, my name is Athena. I'm from the private sector, a company called Phoenix Recycling, and I have a question for Harry from Philips. You mentioned in your discussion that we need policies that allow end-of-life products to cross borders. How would you balance that and the need for to promote a circular economy that way with international mechanisms like the Basel Convention, which are also greatly needed to stop waste dumping across borders? Thank you.
Okay, I'm not necessarily saying that things should be able to transport cross borders, but just to allow economy of scale in recycling, that we should look at, okay, and how far do you permit or do you facilitate redistribution? It should not be a bonanza, where everybody can do what they did in the past. By the way, on the Basel agreements, we are a firm supporter of that. We've worked a lot on that, also reducing mercury, and with LEDs actually had then disappearing mercury in the lighting industry. So it was not meant just to allow anything, but to create economy of scale, to make it more economical, so that we can speed up actually the circular approaches.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Piotr Barczak. I work for the EEB, European Environmental Bureau. Thank you very much. This side event is crucial because it addresses the designing out, the phasing out of pollution. So at the beginning, many of the resolutions discussed by the delegations are missing the point, are not talking about designing out pollution. So this is something I would like to see at least in the next UNEA. One thing, a lot of discussions on circular economy are often focused on the end of pipe like kind of approach, plastics, extended producer responsibility, deposit return systems, plastic bags, but a circular economy is much more than that. It was hardly mentioned today, but what about sharing economy, new business models, changing the mindset of ownership? I know Jocelyn from Ellen MacArthur mentioned that, thank you. Service-based economy, and what about eco-design, the role of eco-design? So that's my question. No, the question is actually a bit different. I would like to ask circular economy experts if waste incineration is part of circular economy. Thank you.
Yeah, as
Jos, you want to address that?
As Mr. Minister just said, I think he was sarcastic. That's an easy one. But first of all, I thought I had said upstream a bit too much, but I can say it again: upstream, upstream, upstream. When it comes to designing pollution and waste out, that's definitely what it's all about. And the business models that do provide the service, rather than just relying on value creation out of throughput and sales of units, is where to go to. Now, the incineration question is of course a big one. There are legacy materials in the system currently that need to be disposed of, and it's in some ways almost impossible not to do that. Having said that, is it part of a circular economy going forward? No, because that's a material suction effect, and that really is providing almost an incentive to keep the waste flows as they are. And we know that the investment in overcapacity when it comes to incineration has led to a few absurdities, such as countries needing to import waste to continue feeding the machine. So I think actually it's a point that has been made and well made by Frans Timmermans in his speech. It was 10 days or 2 weeks ago when he was in Belgium, acknowledging that there is a need short term for it, but it's not part of the solution per se.
Thank you. Please.
Jouni Nissinen, the President of the European Environmental Bureau. This is primarily, I think, a question to Mr. Verhaar, but maybe also to Commissioner Vella. Isn't it actually so that strict regulation that we now experience with regards to recycled materials and products which are made of recycled materials is actually a necessary prerequisite for a functioning circular economy, because that actually ensures that people don't think that recycled, repaired or otherwise non-brand new products are not of secondary quality, but they are actually of primary quality.
Yes, I think this is a very interesting question. It's about recyclates. Yes, we have to push, if need be, even through more regulatory approaches to get more recycling. We're looking also not just at the quantity of the recyclates that we need to have on the markets, but also on the quality. And that's why, for example, in the European Union, we're also addressing chemicals in products which are harmful so that we don't recycle them. We have to remove them from the design and from the products in the first place. If you allow me, I would like to make 2 or 3 small comments. First of all, I agree with the Ecuador that this has been something which was discussed years ago, even some 50 years ago. But if we look at nature, nature is the perfect circular economy model because, and it has been in existing since time immemorial, ever since the planet was born. I think the major fault of humanity is that we always tend to push things to extremes. And during the Our Conference, the Our Ocean Conference in Malta, I think it was Prince Charles who made a statement and he said, we are testing our planet to destruction, meaning that we continue to push and push and push, and we will only act, unfortunately, when it is very, very late. With regards to border access and so on, I think it is very important that we deal with this as a global economic model, because when we talk about the depletion of the resources, we're talking about the depletion of the planet's resources. We're talking about global production. Today we don't have small SMEs only, which they are very active, by the way, in circular economy. But I think it is only fair also for the global companies, because they cannot produce for a linear economy in one area of the globe and for a circular economy in another. With regards to incineration, we're looking at incineration in the European Union not as the best way, not as one of the issues in the hierarchy at the very top. Why? Because we can only look at incineration, at waste to energy, if those products which we are incinerating are not recyclable.
Thank you. Edna, please.
Well, to the question about regulatory framework, I think that it's important to admit, indeed, that there is a need to have tighter regulatory frameworks. But that, our view is that should be combined with other things, 2 other issues. For instance, your awareness raising program, which actually takes on board communities and society. We have a whole movement initiated by the people themselves. In South Africa, for instance, we have something like 62,000 waste pickers who are picking up this waste, taking it to where? Awareness raising, a necessity for them at the end of this product, where they're taking them to have establishment of those recycling facilities indeed, but also the society in general to be aware. The second thing, which is actually most important, is incentivization. We have a private sector that has been moving far faster ahead than the government even. So instead of creating tighter regulations for those, we found it important rather to actually create incentives for them to actually move even faster than they were doing, innovating and moving on up the ladder and increasing their production and rate at which they are actually recycling in particular, and bringing these products again and again into life cycles. Earlier on, somebody said that, Kabisha said, we didn't talk about other areas of the recycle or circular economy. We actually I did refer to the sharing economy. It's a pity that we don't have much time to actually dwell into the nitty-gritties and the details of what we're talking about. So those issues are quite important, and those areas are quite important as well. Thank you.
We have to slowly close, and I would like to give one more possibility in the floor, if it's possible. Okay, but be short, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a little bit about how even eco-entrepreneurs would really help to will play a very huge role in helping with the circular economy. If they could be supported, like to create even, to come up with greater upstreaming ideas. Like for example, I'm actually taking this opportunity to thank like the SEED Awards, which identified us when we're just an idea stage organization. And SEED is an initiative by the UN. Environment, and by identifying and even helping innovative entrepreneurs with an ideas in this kind of areas, it could help to most of us to come up with such innovative ideas that will help to create even more sustainable projects and innovations that will actually create a huge difference in the society and create all this circular, improve the circular economy in all. Thank you so much for this great opportunity.
Mark, if you have very short point, but really short because we have to close.
Yes, Mark Sutton, Chair of the International Nitrogen Initiative. Here we are talking about pollution. We've got our existing clusters, water, air, ecosystems. We're used to those and pollution. But thinking about a circular economy, is that driving us to new clusters where we actually need to group our issues rather differently, for example, through nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon cycles, or through different business routes? So do we need to cluster differently in a circular economy world?
Anybody?
And I think the common driver is actually to value more externalities, put them more on the table: carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, the cost of treatment, not ignore the cost of pollution, and allow products to compete in a level playing field. When I discussed at the beginning the fact that you need to enforce illegal dumping or recycling, it's because you need to have these things on the table, otherwise the competition is going to be uneven. Sometimes European countries forget how they got to what they got on circular economy. The thing is, you did put taxes on landfills, you shut them down, and the realistic way for the most countries that are here is that we need to take those steps in which we make dumping more expensive, and the more that we could add the cost of pollution into the economy, the more the circular economy will have.
Thank you. We have to rush because of they are actually throwing us out of the room. It was like always. It's difficult to start with the panels. It's even more difficult to finish them. So you have been an excellent panel. I would like to thank you, all of you, and you have been even better audience. Thank you, and I'm afraid that we will still circulate few ideas concerning the change of economic model, but if we will circulate upstream, this will bring the situation better and better. Thank you again, and have a nice UNIA meeting.
Yes, good afternoon, and of course we would like you all to stay in the room, but we do need you to stand up, stretch your legs. And what is going to happen is that we're going to put the name tags back here because we now have the leadership dialogue on practical solutions. And therefore, we need to know who is going to intervene. So we will have the names of the countries and of the stakeholders in the back. So stand up, stretch your legs for a couple of minutes. We're going to start in about 3 or 4 minutes in a very exciting leadership dialogue on practical solutions to pollution. Thank you.